Okay, I think we are live right now. Hey, folks, if you're with us today, we're going to be talking a little bit about why it's so hard to find good software. And the problem is not just only with software, it's in the things that we buy, the services we use. Social platforms, for instance, used to be a place people used to like hanging out. Now, people regularly talk about leaving, either going to some other platform, or really just dissociating themselves entirely. In America, cable TV used to be a destination where people went to get their entertainment and their information. And now we have this process called cord cutting. Why is that? We're going to talk a little bit about this, where people start getting dissatisfied with some monopoly services or some company that has or had a really great service or product, and just decided that they'd extract as much from it without really giving very much back. We'll also talk about why open source might be the answer to that. In any case, this process is called enshittification. It's on our thumbnail this week. Hopefully it'll be on our thumbnail going forward if it performs well. But that's the main gist of it. You'll find this theme again and again and again in the news that we talk about today. But enough of that. This is episode 74 of This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly newscast of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Gafar. I'm streaming to you live from New York City this week. And with me is
Küster from Germany, and I'm so huge in the screen, and Alim is currently down there, and that's because we forgot to switch the screens.
I'm looking at the camera, not at my screen, so I missed out on this. So another glitch. This is a regular occurrence here. If there's anything that you should look forward to, is how are we going to screw it up this week? So we've already started, and we'll probably keeping on with that. Let's see. So here is, let me pull this back up here, because this really needs to be the thing that we're talking about. And I mentioned this before. And as it is normally with what we do, is we go straight to the news. All right. Is this my story?
This is your story, correct.
All right, give me 1 second here. I got to pull my notes up because I don't always know what I'm talking about. So anyway, Meteor, as you guys know, or if you're new to Meteor, you don't know, but MeteorJS was one of the first platforms that actually gave you a way to start with a boilerplate right at the command line. You do Meteor create app name, and you have an app. And that's still true even today. You've got multiple flags that you can use on top of it to get a variety of different front ends in the build out that you do. Then at some point, React decided to get into this, and they had a command line prompt that you could use. And it might have been a separate application. I'm not entirely sure how it was implemented, but basically you could run a create React app command line tool, and it would give you some boilerplate too. And people thought it was fantastic. That was after Meteor. We were doing this for a while. They did that, and that was a really great tool for people that build applications with React. Now React 19's out, and apparently the Create React app tool doesn't work with it altogether. And, they're trying to figure out what to do at this point. They don't really have an immediate solution. There's a big warning in the discussion on their GitHub page that this actually breaks the tutorials and is a bad experience for users. So I ask you, would React 19 users be better off building their apps using this, or just using MeteorJS?
So this is also a question out to the React users. How was your experience with React and Meteor. This goes especially to Storyteller, who is usually the React man in our team here.
Yeah,
So that's something
if he
I
were
like.
here, he would have been telling this story. So
Yeah.
no, I'm
The-
sorry, I interrupted you, but I thought you were going to come right back here, though. So yeah, I was just saying, yes, you're absolutely right. This would be right up, storytellers, um, lane, so to speak. But unfortunately, he can't be with us today. He's got, as we all do, we have some life events that take us out of our way in terms of what we could do. Last week, I was in San Diego, and I was not able to participate. Time difference and then staying up really late just didn't quite work. So that happens among us rather frequently. Let's get to the next story, though, because we're past that one. All right. Found this other article on the Webador blog, and it is on 5 digital trends for 2025. And I thought this was kind of interesting for the reasons, not quite the reasons that maybe the author had in mind. So the 5 different trends are AI generated trends, parallax scrolling, micro interactions, minimalism, and dark mode. Now, I don't know about you, but dark mode has been a trend for a while. It doesn't seem to be something to me that was very particular to 2025 or absolutely new. But dark mode has been something that lots of applications have been implementing for the last, I'd say, 5 years. So minimalism, again, I think there has been a move towards more is less. I'm sorry, less is more in web design over, I guess, the last 7 or 8 years, I would say, as we move to simpler and simpler, pages. And then micro interactions, I want to get back to that in a second. The other one is parallax scrolling. This is something that's come and gone a few times. I'm not sure whether or not this is a trend or if this is just fashion, if we want to call it that. Trends seem to have a continuous growth trajectory over a while to me, and things that are fashionable come in and out. So parallax scrolling, I don't think is something that I find to be really compelling as an idea. But these concepts of micro interactions, which are tiny animations or responses that occur during user interactions, like a button changing color or when it's being clicked, or adding a moving emoji to your website, just gives a little bit of dynamism to your web page. I think this is interesting, and so I'd like to see how that works in many websites. I'm not sure I understand why it's necessarily a uh, a new um, trend, but certainly AI generated designs have really started out, I think, in 2024. It's been going on for a bit now, and now we're seeing more and more of those kind of taking hold elsewhere, including with website builders. So, Küster, do you have some opinions on these different on these?
Yeah, it's I don't know why it's missing these other trends like paywalls and micropayments and AI bots, because these are the real trends that are following by
Yeah,
many websites now. And I'm really confused how many times recently I just stumbled over websites that now ask me to pay, and I mean in in a relation to the content that is totally you can't even argue with the quality of the content to pay $1 for one article. Like what?
yeah. Well, I think we could get into an argument about people getting paid for their work, their articles. That's work that people do, and for a very long
True.
time, content creators have been getting the short end of the stick, so to speak, in terms of that. So I can understand part of the monetization strategies, but these are on the focus here is on design.
Yeah, I
and
know.
rather than interaction. And I think, I find it very hard to, you know, to say like many of the design things that Webador is pointing out. And I think Webador is also, they are a website hosting or website builder
Yeah.
company. So, I guess that they're talking about these things relative to the point of view that they see them. But some of these, as I said before, excuse me, um, I just, they've been around forever that I wouldn't call it a trend. I just call it like, that's background noise now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think the big thing that really has joined up or grown here. I mean, I would think like I would have pointed out that one of the trends that you see less and less of, I guess, over time because you can now use AI generated designs is probably going to be likely the uh, lesser reliance on things like Bootstrap or Foundation, right?
Might be.
You know,
Yeah.
these large frameworks,
I mean,
because Mhm.
I could see a very valuable benefit here, and that is that depending on, of course, how much data the website can gather about you, that they have some AI based design generated that is tailored for your preferences. Because I know that design preferences are very, very different, and some people love it minimalistic. I personally love the website design from the late 90s, early 2000s with very
Everything
small
on it.
fonts. It's just every element is very small font
Hmm.
sizes, and the website is full of information but not bloated with senseless stuff. It's just, like some of the forums and all that
Yeah,
stuff. It was just very analytical and very efficient build and stuff. But lots of people don't like that because it was too complicated to navigate these websites. And so but
yeah,
that's my preference. And if I have a website that automatically generates their design in my preference,
yeah,
it would be an interesting catch. I would try that.
yeah. It's. I think I read someplace that some of the Asian websites, Japan and in China and so on, very much look like the old '90s style of website design, and it works for them. Um, but the trend has been to move away for something that has a little more breathing room, more negative space in their designs, and that allows for, I guess, better user interaction with it. I'm not an interaction designer, so I have no qualifications to say whether or not one is good or one is bad. I can, you know, but what I can do is I can say without being a designer that certain things that are being pointed out as trends just seem to have been things I see every year coming up again and again. I don't see the trend part to it. I think it's just like I said, background noise now. This is just table stakes. This is what you do, or these are uh, design patterns or design
The real
options that you can
question,
use. Yeah, go ahead.
the real question here is if the article is already fully AI generated.
Don't know.
Who knows?
Don't know. You
Don't
know.
know. Yeah.
But I think I don't want to harangue this very much more. I want to go on, and to be honest with you, the next article goes right back to the topic we opened with earlier today.
Of
So,
course,
and
that's the
and of course, my
it's the
friend, my
opener to
friend
this
has
whole
been the one that
thing.
taught me that word very early on. So let me pass it back to you, Küster.
Yeah, let's introduce the enshittification process coming up to
Oh,
you
wait, wait,
live
wait, wait.
first
You know what?
time.
Oh,
Skip
we
it.
did not ask for a like, guys. If you're really enjoying this, please, please, please hit the like button, okay? And let's go on from there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, so first of all, this is a follow up on the sorry, I'm really confused right now because that was not the topic on the
Oh no,
list.
no, no.
That's
Oh,
the topic on
we
the
jumped we
list.
jumped past it. We jumped past it. I went
Yes.
past this and then I went to the like button. So we asked for the like
Yes.
button before we gave you your full measure. Sorry,
So
folks. I don't mean to cheat you, and we're not going to cheat you. You will have your 3 before we ask you, but hit the like button anyway. We're gonna do this right now. We're gonna do this right now. Okay.
so
All right.
there is this super awesome episode with Bill Mayer on YouTube. We linked it here, and you should definitely check it out. It's basically newer, not better, and it's entitification nearly 10 minutes, just on point. Everybody should watch that because he is right about everything, starting from Super Bowl, going over to apps, how to watching TV, your car, everything is there, and he basically tells how it is, and I really love it. And in the end, there's one thing we all have to think about, and that is, do we really want that? Do we really want that to be done with us? Because I personally always think we as consumers have the choice to say no to senseless things, to, when come back to design, things that tell us this is the design and we have to live with it, even if it's totally bad or if it changed 180% and we're just throwing out of our habits and have to start over again, or car design, interaction design, all these things. And I loved it, and you should watch it as well. Definitely, that's a great opener to the topic, and also styled with some fun, but also with some truth in there.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't get a chance to watch this yet, so I will take a look at this probably over the weekend. I like him. He's fun to hear. He's very very sharp. So it's as a satirist, I think it's worth checking out. There are lots of people that don't like him because of the point of view that he takes, or maybe the political side of things that he takes. But I think if you look past that, he does make good social commentary from time to time that is not necessarily on one side of the political fence or the other. So really really cool. Okay, and there we go. We already did that. And so let's see. Oh, this is you again, right?
Yes, this is me again. So,
Okay.
I mean, this is not 100% on the main topic, but a little bit, because you can get to become, you can your product to become worse, especially when it comes to your code, if you don't know when to not refactor. I mean, we covered refactoring already in the technical debt episode. It's the TWIM episode number 40 with our guest Adrian Lanning. We talked about technical debt, and then we had refactoring as a remedy to technical debt. But the thing is, it's also good to know when not to do it. And this article, it's not super long, and it's concise and gives you a good hint when to consider or reconsider things, and not refactor for the price of refactoring. This is great, and this is something we should always read, no matter if we're doing MeteorJS work or work in another programming language. These are concepts that are just generalizable for many programming topics. So should
Yeah.
definitely check that out. Keeping your products awesome, and don't and keep your code awesome as well.
So I noticed that, and I'll just mention this. It's the article has basically 6 points that they make. It's and really goes into a little bit of explanation on each. I'm just going to read them real quick. The first one is the change is not really a refactor, right? So you
Yeah.
got to know what you're saying when you're using the word refactor. Number two, there are examples that don't fit our planned refactor. So, and he gives a few of those. Another refactor is already in progress. So there's often work that's being done, and you've got to be aware of what's also happening. So that is something else there. Number four is the code is unlikely to change. Number five, there are no tests, and number six, refactoring reveals more risk than imagined. And then he also has three other articles that he links to. How much should I refactor? Let's not misuse refactoring, and finding the time to refactor. So, Thoughtbot, I don't know what that is, but it's fairly thoughtful, I think.
Yep.
So it's what do you think?
I personally think it's so I don't want to get too far away from our show now, but I just personally think that you always have to align with your project, with your team, with your code, and all these circumstances. And it's always a pro and con. And then you can see what applies to you. For example, we had in our recent project, we had the situation that we have a hard split front end and back end because it was not a MeteorJS application. And we had to refactor front end and back end. And this turned out to be a huge merge conflict for ages because of the interdependencies between front end and back end. We didn't decouple that tightly. And that was more of a problem than we wanted it to be.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to dwell too much because sometimes we get like really deep into something, and I
Yes.
worry that our viewers who are with us for this conversation might get a little bored. So let's move on to something else. And this is not so much in shitification as shit posting, right? So let me let me bring this back. And for a few weeks now, we've been tracking this battle that's going on between Ryan Dahl and Oracle. Ryan decided that he was just going to like ball up his fist and take a punch at Oracle for holding on to the JavaScript name. Now, if you remember, the word JavaScript was trademarked and it was owned by Sun Microsystems when Sun was starting to sunset and was acquired by Oracle. It also acquired the JavaScript trademark. For a very long time, people were very concerned about whether or not we can use the trademark. And so there was a time where we were all using the word ECMAScript, but most people were just saying JavaScript most of the time. And I would say lately, in the last maybe 8-9 years, nobody's really given too much thought to the term, and JavaScript's been used fairly commonly, almost as if like it's just a common term. And when you do things like that, trademarks tend to lose their power. And Ryan decided to go ahead and see whether or not he could get if he could get the word JavaScript removed from the Patent and Trademark Office as a legally registered mark, and just and Oracle basically like punched him in the face, said, no, that's our mark, and we're going to show why it is that it should not go in, it should not be unregistered. And now there's this article that's come out that says Oracle justified its JavaScript trademark with Node.js. Now it wants that ignored. Okay, so this is really like, grab your popcorn, sit back, read the article, and so on. It says, instead of addressing the real issue that JavaScript is still an open standard with multiple independent implementations, Oracle is trying to stall the process to sidestep accountability. Guys, it's if you like seeing a car on fire as you're driving by, this is something to read. So we know we took you down this road. We know we had you in the back seat while we were going past the fire. I don't want to not keep track of this if you're going to feel like, by the way, it's, what's been happening now, you're in the back seat. This is what's happening. So if you want to, there's a QR code, there's a link, go read it. I don't want to spend any more time on this. It's just, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
Let's
move on. And while Oracle is doing Oracle things, we as software engineers sometimes do software engineer things just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And there is a very nice little pamphlet from user Antares on their own blog. And that's very concise in its statements about how we are destroying software. And I think it's addressed as we as software engineers, not mainly we as.
Look at the amount of views this had. Almost 200,000 views.
Yes. I know why, because it was it was shared by some very popular newsletters, which is why it also went into my inbox. And but
Yeah.
I thought that was worthy to all of us because first of all, it fits the topic. Because I think this overall process is not limited to products, but also to frameworks and code. And we are as engineers, we are reliable for code. So we are also reliable if we're destroying our software. And I really like that many of these things and many of these concepts that are destroying software are actually cared about in MeteorJS, like backwards compatibility, stable APIs, not jumping on the newest stuff and things, and having this good outweighted sense of what should be core and what should remain community, so
Yeah.
it's in balance and all that stuff. I really like that, and this also gives me a sense of we're still on the right side with Meteor. We're on a good path here.
Yeah.
We're not making things worse. We're making things better, I think.
I find some of this stuff is really, interesting because, and I don't want to use that word all the time, but here's the thing, right? Some of them are inherently in conflict with each other. For instance, we are destroying software by telling new programmers don't invent the wheel, but reinventing the wheel is how you learn things to work, and it's the first step to make new different wheels. But then he writes 2 lines later, we are destroying software, pushing for rewrites of things that work. So it's like, on the one hand, you want to be able to do right. On the other hand, don't do the rewrite because things already work. And
Mhm.
these are challenges that we all face, right? In terms of like, when do
Yes.
we actually do this? And so
Yep.
I thought I was reading a poem at first when I read this, because, just sort of like they're almost like koans. Every single one of these is just like, here is,
Yep.
our statement. Um, and again, as I said before, some of them, seem to conflict with the other. And but it's worth pondering about, I think, overall, and which is probably why beyond the 200,000 views, that there is quite a bit of interaction in the comments there,
Mhm.
and with people really kind of being passionate about the about saying, yeah, that this like speaks their truth. I hate using the term their truth or your truth or whatever, but this sort of a universal truth um, that you'll run into as a software engineer from time to time. So I don't know if you have a thought on that.
I so hard to say. I again think these things as their own always have to be taken into account your individual and project perspective. That's what I'm doing, at least when I'm reading them. I'm always taking them into account, like looking them from the perspective of the frameworks I use, the projects I do, the code I do, and I know there are quite a few things there I'm doing myself, which is why this contradiction also applies to me.
Right.
And and because you can't ensure everything. We're not perfect engineers, and that's okay. That I personally want to say that's okay. Um, the problem comes when we are forced to act or behave in a certain way, not because it's justified by the project, by the domain, by our skill set, but because people tell you to do it because it's just what everybody does. This is the problematic part. And this is also where this entitification process takes into step, because when everybody tells you to go to this and this framework and use this and this service, and everybody is depending on it, then there's one day this service shuts down. What are you gonna do?
Mm.
Or the framework is deprecated. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? We covered that for MeteorJS, at least in one of our episodes on the MeteorJS Foundation.
Mm.
And if you're interested about that, then check out um, our playlist. We will cover at the end again. There is also the Foundation episode in there.
You know, I'm really we talked about this a little bit offline. I'm really surprised at how well or how engaged people were with the episode last week. But what's also interesting to me, and I'll share this also because we are streaming live right now to two different channels. We're streaming live to the MeteorJS community channel, which is where we started this podcast. But we're also now streaming live to the MeteorJS New York City channel. And last week, and when we did this, we were doing a little bit of an experiment to see just how the traffic would go. And when we started, it was like we were getting quite a bit of traffic also in New York City. But last week, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is we got almost no traffic to the New York City one, but we got a huge amount here. So I'm very curious to see how the split works this week. And anyway, listen, whatever channel you're on, hit the subscribe button. All right. We'd love you to do that and be part of this community. It helps us get more recognition by the YouTube algorithm, which allows us to have this shared, and it gets sourced, bubbled up, and it shows up in the searches and in the recommendations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So hit the subscribe button, help us out, and it'll keep us encouraged to keep on doing this. This is episode 74. We're almost at 75. I mean, think about that. We've done this for almost 2 years now, right? Like in short order, it'll be 2 years worth of videos that we have up here. So it's because we do it once a week. So yeah, just keep us encouraged. We want to keep growing, and we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get more and more people interested, and how do we keep you engaged here? So one of the ways you can get engaged, I did not do this. I did not chat, so I haven't been looking at who's out there.
Hey. No worries. You could looking into the chat while I'm covering the Meteor community packages news.
That's right. So that's right. Well, you're covering the whole news, right? Oh, we have to get let me get this back up here.
Yes, so, the Meteor news.
Here, and we are getting that was a subscribe button. It looks like that. The little hand doesn't actually exist there. That's your hand. So you do what you need to do to hit that button. And the Meteor News is sponsored by Literary Universe. I've got my Literary Universe hat here. I think Küster also has a Literary Universe hat on also.
Yeah.
All right. And if you decide to go and sign up to use it, use the promo code MeteorJS. You get some stuff. I don't know what that is because the person behind that is not with us today. So go and give yourself a nice surprise. You're going to get something really nice out of it. So go sign up. All right. And let's move it to Meteor News.
Yeah, while Alim is in the chat, I will let you know about some recent Meteor news. First of all, there is a very in-depth Meteor 3 migration story. It's Meteor and Blaze for those who want to know. And it's a big app with over 700 templates and over 100,000 lines of code. And their work was very detailed, documented. And I think everyone who was doing that migration, even if it succeeded, if it doesn't succeed, just take a look at that, man. That's just a nice piece of work, of documentation on this migration process. And I think it already earned some momentum in the forums because many people like that. We tried to cover Meteor 3 migration a lot in our streams, but not nearly to this kind of detail. That's just great. Just want to comment, and I just want to leave it at that. Check out the forums on that topic, and let me continue with the next one.
Whoops, sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. So there is a new pull request for the next upcoming Meteor 3.2 release, which gives us security fixes for Node 22.14. So we're back on par with Node. That's what at least the Meteor 3 Plus promise was, to stay on par with Node. This is coming now, opened by Storyteller, fixing some security bugs. Yes, party time. And we also got another Meteor Core news, and that is, Alim, if you would like to switch to the next slide, is
Yep.
about the upcoming 3.3 release in general. Is first of all, we have a beta out there for you to try. And this beta includes the Argon 2 passwords for Meteor accounts password. If you don't know what we're talking about, basically there is some movement already in regards to accounts passwords that for the case the bcrypt gets deprecated one day, then we are with the better or more robust hashing algorithm Argon 2 on the safe side. And this pull request is basically the first opener towards that. So, and you can try it out. It's optional, and it's also described how to migrate to Argon 2 without completely trashing all your accounts. And there is also another one. Let me quickly get back to what we had in the docs. What I wanted to say there. Sorry, I just went out here. Oh no, that was the beta. So you can install the beta by using Meteor update minus release 3.2 minus beta.1. Then you can just run your apps with that and see how far you can get, if there are any issues, and if the Argon 2 integration works. Then we have some Meteor community package updates, fresh from the community, fresh from Storyteller and me, and of course from some others. So, especially the 4.7 SCSS alpha has been released. We have covered that last week. The underlying SCSS package is replaced by a more modern one. It's not. This has not been done by us. That was by somebody else. Big thanks again. And there's a new beta for the Gafar, and there's a new minor release for Collection 2 with some fixes, some code improvements. So thanks to everyone involved, and hopefully new updates for MCP coming in next week.
Excellent. And now, I guess we get into our understanding Meteor section here. Let me pull up the little ad that we typically run. Right. Your workloads on Galaxy. So if you want to try it out, you haven't done so before, you could do that. If you already have workloads on Galaxy, but you have not gotten a chance to use this coupon yet, go ahead and do so. This is really only a one-time use option. So that is what the folks at Meteor Software have offered to you in order to better understand Galaxy. And now Galaxy also supports Python workloads and Node.js workloads. So it's worth checking out if you've got more than one type of application. All right, and let's move on from here.
No,
we're going to
yes.
stay here. Okay, we're just going to take this off, right? So
Yes.
you're going to share your screen? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, so maybe first, before I share my screen, before I start sharing my screen, let me quickly talk about something here. So we introduced this main topic, enshittification, and it is mostly about products getting worse, getting de-optimized, or getting there's a German word called broken optimized for brokenness, basically
Okay.
kaputt optimiert. And this is also a process that happens primarily for commercial products and big platforms. Look at Unity, what they tried to do with their license changing once they became huge. Look at what Netflix does. They're huge. They have the de facto monopoly now, and they're doing every cash grab now they can get. And it's like these commercial platforms trying to get the most out of it. And there's one thing that we should always consider, and that is open source can be not the solution, the 100% solution, but it is a remedy. It can be a countermeasure, because when there are products you're depending on, have a really free alternative, not only free in terms of price, but also in terms of license. A free alternative, first of all, the vendor of the commercial product has to work much more in order to provide a real useful product, but at the same time, you're free to use an alternative if that commercial product gets bad. And I want to show you something today that I released yesterday as a Meteor package, and this is called Alt-Cha. It's a word mashup from, let me share my screen. It's a word mashup between captcha, you might know already, and alternative. So alternative captcha. And let me open the page for that. That's basically the alternative to the Google-based captcha. And why is that great? Because it's 100% self-hosted. So you don't have any trouble with GDPR, but you also don't have any trouble with this becoming simply worse with the next update. Because when the next update is not what you like, then you can still fork it and continue work on your own. And it's looking nearly the same as you might know it from the Google chapter. It's a captcha. It's like this little form element asking you, like, I'm not a robot. And then when you click on it, it's doing some calculations in the background, estimating, are you a bot, are you not a bot? And then it's doing its own thing. And Alt-Cha has a very open process about that. Plus, it's not training some AI to classify stuff on your behalf without paying you. It's doing a proof of work challenge to the requesting clients, making it very unattractive for bots to doing automated form requests with that. And the package I integrated here is basically this Alt-Cha server-side validation with a Mongo collection that saves the already validated challenges, and then we can integrate it on the client. And I could, while we talk, Alim, about this engineering process, I could just try to get this running on my machine here, if you want. Just increasing my font size a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to do that. Thank you. Could you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your take on this whole engineering process, especially in the software department?
I think having options. I think you're absolutely right. I think once you start seeing companies, they get they don't have to. They get to a point where they can start extracting more and more money, and I understand businesses need to do this. You can't fund things forever for free, right? At some point, you have to return some value back to the people that are putting the money in. But there tends to be, it seems to me, this this belief that, well, we'll just sit on what we've done, and it's good enough. And if we have a monopoly, well, where are people going to go? And we've seen this with like Microsoft Office for many, many years, right? This has been a little bit of an issue, and there really haven't been a lot of different competitors out there. But I will say, like Google Sheets, for instance, is putting a little bit of a challenge to Excel. It's not at the level of what financial analysts would use, I think, because my wife is on Wall Street, and no matter how much I tell her how well Google Sheets has improved, she won't swap over her Excel for Google Sheets. And by the same token, because it doesn't have even the full panoply of capabilities that exists on the Microsoft version, she won't use the Mac version of Excel, even though many of those features are not features she uses at all. Just the mental spaces is like, okay, the monopoly is the people behind it. They have all of the features this other one is lacking. so I'm not going to trust going over to this other product. But it is very hard to use in a lot of cases. Like some of these applications are just, they've got these many different ribbons of features, and it's just keep on adding features, and instead of it becoming better to use, it becomes more complicated to use. So I see this happening again and again in a lot of different products, especially with commercial products, where they just feel like they need to keep adding things to be on parity with other products. One of the companies that were one of the first, I think, to move away against this were the folks behind Basecamp. And Basecamp is one of those applications, and maybe I should just find Basecamp and just put it up there so that people can see it. But Basecamp is project management software, and oh gosh, their front page, it's by 37 Signals. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name behind 37 Signals is. It's do you remember what his name is? He writes a lot of blogs.
There are quite some people writing blogs.
It's David something or the other. I forget his name. In any case, let me just share this really quickly. So this is Basecamp, and you can take a quick tour of Basecamp. Let's see if I can.
This is homepage, and these are projects. Let's go ahead and click one. So each project has a set of familiar tools. That way you can avoid hopping between 4 or 5 different apps and instead just stay in Basecamp. First, we got the message board. Rather than sending a bunch of emails, you post messages here so everyone on the project can see them, including people who join the project later. Now let's look at to-dos. Everything is very clear. You just make a list of to-dos, assign them to people, make due dates, then people check them off. Now, if you click on a to-do, you can see all the details here and discussions about it below on one screen. Next tool is Docs and Files, where you can upload all docs, files, and images. You can organize them into folders, and if you want, you can link files from somewhere else like Dropbox, Figma, Google Drive, anywhere really. You also get a project chat, which is where you can get a quick update on something or trash talk Matt's sports team he never shuts up about. Love that guy. So no more switching over to a text thread or some other chat app because it's already right here. Okay, next up, let's look at the schedule. This is where you can add deadlines, milestones, and important events. And if you want to subscribe your Basecamp schedule to some other calendar you already use, you can do that right here. Okay, and finally, you have the card table. It's like a Kanban board. Just create and assign a task, then move it through each phase of the process. And if you click one, the important details and related discussions are all right here on one page, just like they are in to-dos, messages, or anything in Basecamp, really. Now, if you're using...
So I'm not selling Basecamp, so I don't want to really spend too much time here. But the point is that if you have ever used something like Microsoft Project, for instance, with Gantt charts and trying to set up predecessors, successors, and trying to figure like all of that out, it's really complicated as a project manager. But Basecamp went in and they said, look, we don't need all of those things. What we need to do is be able to track the activities that happen on a project on sort of like at the most atomic level, the task, right? Because that's what we're all assigned, and then be able to move it through some workflow. And they have stayed true to keeping it as trimmed down, as simple as possible. Whereas more and more companies would just say, okay, and by the way, this product's been out for over 20 years now. And it hasn't gotten more complicated than that, right? And so I think this is one of the things that I'm going to bring you back to your screen. I apologize for jumping it out that way, but yeah. So anyway, there is that when we're talking about the enshittification of existing products.
I mean, in the meantime, let me get to our project. So what I did is just creating a new Meteor project and adding a settings.json file. And this settings.json file basically contains the configuration for the challenge on the server side and how these things are sent to the client. Because
is it possible to make it bigger?
It's still too small. Let me increase that, no problem. The challenge is constructed on the server side.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. And you need to configure that in the settings.json file because I wanted, first of all, make it easy as possible, but also don't get anyone accidentally enter any of these things in their code, which is why it's moved to the settings file. And this is like how it's done. You define what the challenge on the server generated is using as an algorithm. SHA-256 is the default. What's the challenge URL? That's actually a HTTP endpoint. And we'll show you in a minute how it's done. You don't have to do anything when integrating it. That's the great thing. But the package is doing all that. You need the HMAC key for creating the signatures. There's a max number of rounds for computation. The bigger this one is, the heavier is the computation. So the more secure it is against bots, but also the longer it takes, especially on mobile devices or low power devices, because on the and on devices which cannot leverage web workers, because it's basically using web workers in order to efficiently solve that. And you can also do an expiration date. And I'm also one of those people who like to configure these challenge URLs on the client and the server in the settings file. So I also added a public Alcha challenge URL here. That's the settings. These are used in the okay, it looks good. I don't see any issue here. So let me run the Meteor. And in the meantime, I'm opening the server.main.js. That's the file where we basically import the Alcha and construct the initialize things. Basically, what we do here is import Alcha. I'm actually exporting two functions, init and validate. And if you want to keep the namespace free, you can just say star as Alcha from Meteor /j Küster _Alcha. Mind the typos. And then on startup, you simply say alcha.init, and the init function, this also allows you to pass a Mongo collection as storage, because you want to store the solved challenges in order to prevent replay attacks. That's a common attack that you can easily prevent with that. By default, it's just an in-memory Mongo collection. So as if you pass in something with null as a name, then it's a local collection, not saved to the database. You could also use one to save to the database. That's up on you. I'm just initializing it without anything. And I'm also creating an endpoint for this tutorial, very easy one, just without any further validation. Just I call it submit. That's for the form, obviously. And then there is our form data. So let's assume we have a form, like a registration form or login. But mostly it's for registration forms or sending comments and things like that. It's here. And then we're doing our validation here. But before we continue on that, let me save that. And then see, it's still having some errors in the settings.json file. I'm really curious what this is about. Anyone spotted it? Am I too blind to see it? I mean, that's already, again, one of those things that makes this live coding really a challenge, to get this done in one take without any further issues. Alim, anyone in the chat noticing something? I really don't know why it's telling me it's faulty. Do you see something, Alim?
Saying the syntax looks fine. I'm looking at this right now. Commas are where they're supposed to be. Colons, everything's delimited properly. What is the error that we're getting?
Telling me settings.json part error reading settings file.
Is it a path issue?
No. settings.json. This is all good. Okay, in the meantime, while it's loading, let me go on the client, because there's one thing I forgot. Maybe so I have to run Meteor at Küster double.alcha, because we need this package in order to work. Without the package, we can't really have it. And while it's doing that, let me check here. This is crazy why it's telling me that. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me do one thing. Let me just destroy these public here. And you know what?
John Morrow's comment on the screen. John Morrow has a comment here. Missing colon after Alcha.
Oh, okay.
My eyes are too slow. I didn't.
Yes. Okay, now it should be fixed. True. Okay, let's run that again. So it has, first of all, it has added the Alcha package here. And now it's building. And while it's building, I'm editing now the client. So client main, oops, sorry, I was too fast. Main.js. I know that Kelly already is telling everyone that this would never happen if I use NeoVim. So on the client, I'm importing, of course, the main./main.html file. That's the one, and I'm importing the Alcha package, because that's the one that I'm going to need here in order to use it. That's not the Alcha package I'm designing. That's the client-side package you can import, and it works with any client. That's why I designed that package to be server-side only, because this is the most important integration for Meteor. On the client, you can just use this Alcha web component and just integrate it into your code how you want to have it. So if you're using React, then you can import this Alcha package. It's an npm module. If you're using Vue or if you're using Blaze, it doesn't matter. This is your thing. And then we create our template my form.events, because that's when the Alcha form will be submitted. This is the only, we need some helpers. Sorry, I forgot. Template.myform.helpers. And then we have the challenge URL, because we need to tell the Alcha on which endpoint, HTTP endpoint, to request the challenge URL. Then it's returning meteor.settings.public.alcha.challenge URL. It's a long thing, but that's how it is now. Submit. And now let's consider I have a form submitting my form. That's the event we will listen to send it to the Alcha. And for now, that's one thing. Then let's remove these things here. Let me remove all that and just call it my form. I'm doing my form here. That's now our template we're working with. And then in that form, this is just a simple form. Now, form ID is my form. Let me just call it that as well. I'm not very creative in naming these things right now. And then let's say we don't have any more input than the Alcha. Let's say, okay, that's a registration form. I just want to add any inputs beyond the Alcha now, just because we don't have that much time. You just add the Alcha widget and provide a challenge URL. And the challenge URL, that's the one you're sending basically from your helper, or you're constructing with your, I don't know how you ever do it in React or in Vue. And then it's the ultra minus widget. Okay. And then you're saving that. That's our form. Oh no, it needs a submit button, of course. Button type equals submit. And then submit, closing button. So that's our form, okay? And then when you're in the, what I'm doing today, sorry. In the submit form, let's say there is an event. And then first of all, we prevent default the event so we don't reload the page. Prevent default. Now it's getting interesting. We want to get the form data. And because we're not using something like auto form, we have to do it manually. But nowadays, it's really easy to do that. We just create object from entries. From entries, and then new form data. Form data event.target, because we submit a form, then the event target is the form, and then we ask the form data of its entries. That's our data, and one of these entries in the form is this so-called ultra. So let me run the debugger here to show you before I'm sending this to the server and before it's getting even more complicated. And then let's see how many errors it's generated. It hasn't generated any single error. Let's see what's going on here. So this is how it looks like. Wait, let me reload the page I have open here for you. So this is how it looks like. That's when the ultra is loaded. And when I'm opening my browser tool, so first of all, when I'm submitting something here, then first of all, it will tell me that it's a required field. So I need to submit that guy. And now in the background, it ran already this whole web worker process. Sorry, let me get back here. And when I'm submitting that, then you will see that this data, this is just a huge base 64 payload. Under the hood, this is the solve challenge with the challenge ID and so on. And that gets sent to the server and just pass. This is what we're going to do now. We're just sending this to the server. So let's call our Meteor method we just create on the server. And it's called, I think I call it submit form. Meteor.call submit form, or I just call it submit. And then the form data, and then have a callback. And then to make it easier for us now, it's just the console debug what's coming up there, right? So that's the client-side code. Getting the form data, passing the ultra-generated challenge to the server. Now getting back on the server. And then there is our submission. There is one field called ultra. That's the default name. You can change that in the client configuration. It's all documented. This is the one we want to have from the form data. And then this is also the one we want to validate. And this is how we use the valid. This is how we use the library again. Wait ultra dot validate, and then we use the ultra. That's actually the payload, basically. And then if it's not valid, then we throw an error. Okay. So one thing we forgot. It's an async function, otherwise that's not working. So saving, and then let's see, let's restart it. Let's restart that thing. So first of all, of course, I could try to submit it, but then you saw that what's jumping here, that was the web workers doing their work. And we created an error, so I definitely did something bad that was not expected. let me quickly see what's the payload here. Because I'm silently failing, so that means I actually don't send back any more information, why it failed and so on. So let's see what the server generated, but that's actually the correct one. So why is it now failing? Why it's now failing when I'm showing this to everyone, but it's working when I'm working this on my own? Alim, can you tell me why it is always failing when I'm showing that to someone?
In America, this is what we call Murphy's Law. So it has to be this way.
It has to be that way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now it's getting interesting because let me quickly see how I can. So what I can do now in order to get this done is to see. I can now run to debug. I have 2 points to debug. First of all, on the server, instead of running this here, I could also doing. I'm adding a debug function here. I just use console debug, that's fine, as my server-side debugger. That's one thing. And on the client, I actually can pass to the web component. I can pass the debug flag as well. And then it's refreshing. So when I'm reloading this, then as you can see here, this is the client-side debugging from the web component. I don't have anything to do with it because that's just a out-of-the-box web component. When I'm verifying it, it's telling me which challenge I'm using here and which signature is created and all that stuff. So if I'm looking at the server, then there is the endpoint on the Ultra challenge. That looks good. So that's the challenge it received. Okay, so let me submit this. Okay, and then let's see, payload challenge that's the challenge, OA3. Was that the same challenge as here? Yeah, it was the same challenge. So why it's now telling me, oh, I think I know what's going on here. Okay. Okay, at that point, I'm really out, and I don't, I don't know how to move further on without deeper debugging. I'm really sorry for that. This is a chance for me to make this even better and not worse. So we were ranting all the time that things are getting worse, but I have to deliver to make something good at least, you know.
Yeah, don't be a victim of enchinification of your own work.
Yeah, no. I will make it better next time, you know. But in that case, better means that I have more deeper insight on the debugging side of things. So going from there, I mean, we can just briefly talk about it and let me, in the meantime, in the background, check out, find what's the cause for this. But I think we're also closing in on the end of the show.
Yeah, we have some useful resources that we want to share. So do you want us to just break on this for now and just go through that section, and then if you figured it out, we'll bring it up, or otherwise we'll close and we'll do an offline. What do you want to do? Yeah, that works.
I will continue next week.
Okay. Wow, we've got circles now. Let's go back to. There's some different options. Oh, look, we got that one too. This is not a bad one, you know. But all right, so let's bring these slides back up here again, and let's go back to what we were working with before, and let's show, and let's get back to. Hang on one second. Why did it not do that? Okay, so there we are. So we are now at our useful resources. So let's go and check out what we've got here. And give me 1 second. I've got to get my screens back up again because they went to sleep while you were doing your demo. Okay, so all right, these useful resources. Oh, 2 different mice. So one of the things I want to bring up is just like it seems that every day it seems there's news of a new AI for IDEs or some tools simply replace developers. Whether it's Copilot or this or name your tool today. And if anybody in the chat has used one of these, write it in. Let us know what you've tried. But let's see. Hang on here. We have a comment. Just software should work. Okay. All right. Windows 3.0. Wow, we're really going back now, aren't we? Oh, by the way, these are kind of comments on when you were working on your code just now. Our friend Storyteller. Oh no, another refactor. And what do we have here from Simon? One day is going to happen to me, and I thought Meteor. It was Meteor that update without my knowledge. So, and was there already talk about a problem with software? I just came up. Okay. So, yeah. So there are a number of different tools. Windsurf is a new one. It's an IDE that thinks and codes with you. That seems to be, I don't know. It might be a little scary. It might be a little friendly. I guess it depends on your perspective of where you want to come with this. But there are more and more of these days. Again, if you had some experience with them, just shout out, let us know. And if there are others out there that we haven't covered yet, that'll be great to hear about. This is from the New Stack. Jack Wallen wrote this, and go read it. There are the links below. And let me move on to the next one. Are we going to be doing this React 19 quick overview? I mean, I can do it if we need to. Jan?
Is that I think that would have been Storyteller's.
It would have been Storytellers. So let me just tell you quickly, React 19 is out. There's some new updates and features. There's an article written by Kainer Yasiltas and in dev.to, right? Dev.to. And so he points out some of the main features that are highlighted here. So it says, this new release brings some cool improvements that can make our apps faster and our code cleaner, simplified async actions, new hooks and the use API, better server-side rendering, enhanced handling of metadata styles and scripts. And those are the main features that he's highlighted in this article. You want to go take a look at it and read the details. By all means, we have a way for you to do that here. And finally, this is yours, I believe. Jan? Are you? This is your story, I believe, right?
I had to switch my browsers to unmute my mic.
Okay.
Yes, there is a nice collection on how to geek the website. Every one of us used at least once. I would love to use it right now to just get my problem solved, but I use that website to solve issues, especially when I have to work on Windows, which is sometimes unfortunately the case. But they also have great content about Linux. And in this case, they have a compilation on several YouTube channels on Linux topics with a very broad variety on subtopics. I mean, Linux is huge, so there are many topics you can dive into. But what's really cool about this is that there are also different styles of the creators covered here. So if you rather prefer someone just pulling their head into the camera and talking about it, there is a channel about that, like more opinionated stuff. But there are also really like tutorials. Then there are other people leveraging storytelling, and so this is a nice compilation, and there might be a channel for everyone's flavor in that list, which is why it's a very useful resource. So the chances are very high that you will also find one of them to be yours, basically.
Yeah, so I'm going to just scroll through what they are here just so that people could see what they are. And then we'll switch back to the list there. As a matter of fact, if you want to get back to debugging, which I think is what you were trying to figure out before, I think that's totally fine and appropriate at this point. Because we have exhausted our list of items at this point in terms of news and resources that we wanted to share with you today. So here are some, again, the last of the 9 to 5 Linux is really well known. So this is that list that was shared, and let me go back to this. So this is where we were before. So having done that, where are we now? I think this was the last. Yep, that was the last slide in all of this. So folks, let me remove this. Remove from the stream.
I think I found why my code fails.
Okay. Well, go for it, bro.
It looks like it. I mean, let me share my screen again to show you something we also covered in a prior episode, and that is how to run the Node debugger on your client. So basically, I was trying to get into the internals, and it looks like my expiration date is due. Because you can set an expiration date there, and it looks like my expiration date is due, which is why it's returning false.
Okay.
And when it's returning false, then of course it is invalid. So let me quickly check what I did with the expiration date settings here.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are in the settings file. So settings.json, and then there is this expiration after this in milliseconds, and somehow I broke them. So what happens if I just add a super long number here, which is not cool, but just for the sake of trying these things to see how it works. So first of all, let me unplug the inspector and replug the inspector, and then start that thing. Then switch to my client. Try to solve the challenge. Submit, and then again see what the server does. So let's go into the internals of the package. By the way, we can also see here on the internal, this is here, expiration after. So let's see where the expiration was created. That's here. When we have the challenge, by the way, this is leveraging Meteor's web app. So it's expressed basically creating an expiration date from the current timestamp of the challenge creation, and then expires get time plus, and then this internal expiration after, and which is this guy here. So let's have a look how that turns out. The parsing is okay. So we have our data. That's basically what the client sent here. The challenge, the numbers, all signature, what it took. So, and then it was also not solved. Verify solution, get into here. Check. That's the library internals, by the way. So this is not what I'm doing. That's the expiration. It's still expiring. Why is that? Date get time is date.now. Can somebody explain me why February 12th? Oh, look. This is weird. The date is somehow totally broken. As you can see, the date that it's looking for, it seems to be the 12th of February.
That's
but now we have the 14th of February. Why is that? What's going on here? Why is that happening? This is totally crazy. Okay, guys, at least I know where the problem is. So because the rest of the challenge will work out, let me check out what's going on here, and then next week I will show you what that was in a very compressed 3 to 5 minute go through based on that code, showing you how I solved it, what the issue was, and then getting back to showing you how it's finally working. Is that a good thing, Alim? What do you think?
I think that's a good compromise right now. Otherwise, I think folks will be, hanging out here. Here, this is just the reality of doing live demos, right? It's sometimes everything works out well, sometimes not so much. All right, and I think this was also a spontaneous thing. This was not planned at all for the episode. So it was one of those things that about half an hour before we started, you said, I could do this. Do you want to go for it? And I said yes. So I think that should also be recognized and understood. So I guess next week you'll have it hopefully worked out, and it'll be probably canned than that it was today.
Okay.
All right. And with that, unless there's something else to add, I'm going to say have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for joining us again. All right.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.